Have you ever looked into a woman's eyes and felt like she wasn't really seeing you, not the you that pays the bills, not the you that texts back, shows up, tries hard, but the you that longs to be chosen without begging, admired without pretending, loved without chasing? Most men, especially after 30, carry this silent ache. You've had women smile in your direction, fall for your charm, touch your hand with interest, only to slowly pull away. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you didn't understand the game beneath the surface. And it's not your fault. You were never taught that attraction isn't logical, it's psychological, even primal. Women don't fall in love the way we do. They respond to unspoken cues, subtle triggers, what we call dark psychology. This isn't about manipulation. It's about waking up to the reality that emotional chemistry isn't an accident, it's a dance. And if you don't know the steps, you'll keep watching her lose interest while the man who barely tries ends up in her bed. So, what if I told you that there are 7 deeply rooted psychological levers, hidden, ancient, powerful, that can make any woman feel magnetically drawn to you without forcing a single word? In this conversation, I'm not going to give you tricks to deceive her. I'm going to teach you how to access the part of you she's always been craving, but you've buried under politeness, pressure, and pain. Stay with me. This will not only change the way she sees you, it will change the way you see yourself. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself, even if it's just in the silence of your mind. Have you ever been the man she almost loved, the one who made her laugh, made her feel safe, maybe even feel seen, but somehow she still chose someone else? Or no one at all? It's a quiet kind of heartbreak, the kind that doesn't scream or shatter things but sinks in, slow like winter. You try to do all the right things, you're kind, you're respectful, you're steady, but still something is missing. She doesn't lean in the way you hoped she would, and there's a part of you that begins to wonder, is it me? Am I too much, too little, too late? But what if the truth is far less personal and far more psychological? What if there are patterns almost like laws of emotional gravity that women respond to, that their nervous systems respond to? And what if, unknowingly, you've been moving against those forces, wondering why things never feel quite right? This isn't about deception. This is about awareness. See, women are not looking for good boys. They are drawn sometimes uncontrollably to men who stimulate certain emotional triggers. Confidence, yes, but not the loud kind. It's the quiet certainty of a man who doesn't need her, but chooses her. The first dark psychology trigger is tension, not conflict, not drama, tension, the delicious feeling of not knowing what comes next. Most men rush to reassure, they want to remove all doubt, all ambiguity, but attraction doesn't grow in certainty, it grows in mystery. Have you ever told a woman, you can call me anytime, or I'll always be here for you, or you don't need to wonder, I'm all in? And what happened? She thanked you, maybe, smiled, but the spark died. Because when she knows exactly how you feel before she's earned it, before there's been any dance, her instincts say, this is safe, but not exciting. What pulls her in is the question of you. Is he thinking of me? Why hasn't he texted? Why did he smile that way and then walk off? This is not about playing games. It's about allowing space for desire to grow, for curiosity to breathe. You want her to wonder not because you're hiding, but because you're whole without her. And when a man is whole, he doesn't explain every part of himself. When you create tension subtly, not cruelly, you're telling her nervous system, there is something here worth exploring. You are not solving her, you are inviting her into the mystery of you. And when she leans in curious, you don't flood her with answers. You respond like a mountain, calm, firm, quietly alive. The second trigger is validation, but not the kind you're thinking of. Not praise, not flattery, not you're so beautiful, repeated like a vending machine. I mean emotional mirroring. Let me explain. When a woman shares something vulnerable, her fear of not being enough, her complicated relationship with her father, the way she hates her body in certain lights. Most men either reassure no, you're perfect, or retreat, that's too heavy, but a man who knows the deeper layers of psychology, he listens. He breathes, and then he reflects, not in judgment, not in rescue, but in resonance. He says something like, I get that. I've felt that in my own way too. Or even just, that must be a lonely feeling to carry. You're not fixing her, you're showing her, I see you. The raw parts, not just the pretty parts. And in that moment, something powerful happens in her brain. Her amygdala calms, her guard lowers, her heart says, maybe I'm safe here. And do you know what a woman becomes when she feels emotionally safe? Open, affectionate, addicted, because most of her life she's had to guard that part of herself, the part that is messy, moody, inconsistent. And when you, a man, can sit calmly with her storm and not run, you don't just earn her affection, you become a craving. The third psychological lever is withdrawal, not as punishment, but as self-protection. Now listen carefully, because this one is often misunderstood. When a woman senses that she can access your attention at all times, when you're always available, always answering, always waiting in the wings, you become background noise. Not because she's ungrateful, but because she's human, the mind habituates. So what happens when, instead of giving her all of you on demand, you disappear? Not in anger, not in revenge, but because your life is full. Your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. Suddenly, she feels the absence, she notices the silence, she replays your words, she begins to chase. This is not manipulation, this is polarity, the dance of distance and closeness. You don't ghost her. You don't punish her, you simply reclaim your center. You stop sending texts just to fill space. You stop trying to win her over with effort. You remember who you were before you started performing for love, because when you return to your own gravity, she feels it. And women are drawn to men who are pulled by purpose, not by desperation. So, let me ask you again, have you been too available, too affirming, too open too soon? Have you been giving her the full map when she hasn't even started the journey? Women do not fall in love with answers. They fall in love with questions, with tension, with emotional resonance, with the mystery of a man who doesn't need to be needed. And when you master that balance, when you stop trying to be the man she expects and start being the man who simply is, calm, certain, magnetic, she begins to respond in ways you never thought possible. She initiates, she opens, she invests, not because you tricked her, but because, finally, you activated something deeper than logic. You touched her instinct, and instinct doesn't lie. Attraction begins in the nervous system, but it anchors in the imagination. If a woman can't imagine you, she can't desire you. This is where so many good men get stuck. They present themselves fully, immediately, hoping that honesty and availability will be enough. But the truth is, when everything is revealed too soon, nothing feels worth discovering. A woman's desire thrives on the unknown, not the unsafe, but the ungraspable. And this brings us to the fourth psychological lever, emotional asymmetry. Now that sounds more complicated than it is. Think of it this way. When one person emotionally invests just a little more than the other, the imbalance creates energy. Not a toxic one, but a natural pull. It's a dance, remember, and in every dance someone leads. So when you notice that she's becoming curious, texting more, leaning in, do not mirror it immediately. Allow the space, let her feel the stretch. This isn't rejection, it's emotional polarity. See, if she's leaning toward you and you lean in at the same pace, desire neutralizes. But when you hold your pace grounded, aware, gently receptive, she begins to feel your value. Why? Because what you don't chase begins to feel rare. And what feels rare becomes precious. This is not cruelty. This is calibration. You're not being aloof. You're not playing cool to wound her. You're creating contrast. Just as light means nothing without shadow, Your warmth means nothing unless it's contrasted with your distance. And here's where most men struggle. The moment a woman shows affection, they flood her with reassurance, texting back instantly, pouring their heart out, confessing every detail of their day. It feels noble, but it flattens the tension. It speeds up a process that should unfold like a slow dance in candlelight. Let her invest more. Let her feel the uncertainty, not as a weapon but as a whisper, a question she doesn't yet have the answer to. And when she does invest, don't reward her with desperation. Receive it, slowly, as a man who knows that not every smile means surrender. This leads us to the fifth lever, controlled unpredictability. Now I want you to really listen, because this is the one that rewires her nervous system like nothing else. Predictability is comfort, but unpredictability, that's arousal, when she can predict your every word, every move, every emotion. Her mind relaxes, but her desire fades. That's the paradox. She feels safe, but not seduced. So what do? You become stable in your values, but surprising in your presence. You show up when she's not expecting it, with energy, with playfulness, with a question she hasn't heard before. You shift tone, you change rhythm, you tease with depth, you don't become chaotic, you become alive. One day you text her mid-morning with a photo of a coffee and the words, "This made me think of you, and I'm not even sure why." That's not logic. That's intrigue. Or you interrupt a routine conversation by asking her, "What's something about you no one ever asks, but you wish they would?" You see, unpredictability isn't about randomness. It's about disrupting patterns that have grown stale. It's about being just unfamiliar enough to awaken her curiosity again. And when she doesn't know what's coming next, not because you're withholding, but because you're present and dynamic, she stays awake around you. Alert, emotionally engaged. Think about the most magnetic moments you've had with a woman. Were they the ones you rehearsed? Or were they the spontaneous, unpredictable flashes of realness that neither of you saw coming exactly? This is why women fall hard for men who are emotionally present but psychologically elusive, who feel like both home and a locked door. But be careful, this is not about being reckless with her emotions. This is about being artful with your presence. Because women don't want chaos, they want a man whose stability doesn't smother them, a man who has roots but moves like wind, quietly, surprisingly, intentionally. And now we need to talk about the sixth lever, the one that most men never develop because they're too afraid to own their dominance. I don't mean control, I don't mean arrogance, I mean energetic leadership, the kind of presence that makes her body feel safe and her mind feel challenged. This is the psychology of power, not over her, but over yourself. Have you ever been in a room with a woman and you could feel she wanted you to take the lead? Maybe it was a touch, a look, a silence that begged to be filled with certainty, and you hesitated. You doubted, you looked for permission, and the moment passed. She didn't lose interest because you lacked charm. She lost interest because your energy dropped, because your inner voice got louder than your instincts. A powerful man leads with intent. He walks into a space and brings direction. He says, "Let's go here," or "I want to see you Tuesday," or "I love when you wear your hair like that." He isn't asking, he's inviting, not forcefully, but from a place of clarity. And when a woman feels that true masculine decisiveness paired with emotional safety, her body opens. Her heart softens, because most of her life has taught her to lead, to fix, to plan. When a man relieves her of that burden, even for a moment, she remembers her own femininity. And this is not about gender roles. This is about energetic balance. You don't dominate her, you ground her. You become the place she relaxes her mind because you're not second, guessing your every move. So ask yourself, do you move like a man who trusts himself? Or do you wait for her to approve of you before you speak? The truth is, women don't want a man who obeys. They want a man who sees, who hears, who moves with purpose, not with apology, and that brings us naturally to the final thread that weaves all of this together. But before we go there, I want you to take a breath. Let all this settle, because what we're doing here is more than dating advice. It's emotional reconditioning. You are not just learning how to get a woman to love you. You're learning how to become the kind of man she can't stop thinking about, not because you manipulated her, but because you revealed her deepest desires to herself. The final lever is the one most feared, the one most misunderstood, and the one that, when activated with grace, does more to seduce a woman's soul than anything you can say or do. It is the power of absence, not withdrawal, not ghosting, not vanishing to punish, but intentional absence, the kind that speaks even when you say nothing. There is a kind of man who lives so fully in his world that even when he's not in the room, you feel his imprint. His decisions don't beg for attention. His silence carries meaning. His presence lingers even after he's walked away. Women crave this deeply, desperately. They want to feel your edges, not because you're cold, but because you're sovereign. You've probably seen it, that man who leaves a conversation before it turns into over-explaining, the one who doesn't need to justify his feelings, doesn't beg to be understood. He gives just enough and lets the rest echo. This isn't rudeness, it's elegance. Because when you can walk away not out of rage, not to prove a point, but because your center isn't for sale, she senses something ancient, something primal, the presence of a man who is not possessed by her approval. Absence is what makes a woman dream. Fantasize, reflect, because desire doesn't live in closeness alone. It lives in the gaps, in the pauses, in the space between connection. And when you become the man who knows when to step back, when to let silence do the seduction, you become unforgettable. But let's be real, most men can't handle this kind of power. They get scared, they fear losing her. They fear the silence, so they keep texting, keep explaining, keep showing up, even when their soul needs space. But here's the hard truth. If your presence isn't valued, your absence will never be felt. So you must be willing to pull away, not out of strategy, but out of self-worth. You must be willing to walk alone, knowing that real desire is not forced. It's invited, and sometimes the invitation comes after you leave the room. And when she does come back, because if she's the right one, she will, you don't punish her, you don't play hard to get. You simply remained anchored. You welcome her without bitterness, without need, because you were never waiting. You were living. That right there is the ultimate seduction, not the touch, not the words, but the stillness of a man who does not chase love, but who commands it by the way he holds himself. You see, dark psychology is not about control, it's about understanding human desire at its root, and at the root of every woman is this longing, to feel your presence and your restraint, to feel wanted but not owned, to feel chosen but not caged, and this is where your true power lives, not in being everything to every woman, but in being something unforgettable to one. And now that we've explored these 7 triggers: tension, emotional mirroring, calibrated distance, emotional asymmetry, controlled unpredictability, energetic leadership, and the art of absence, I want you to reflect on something much deeper, because all these tools, all this awareness, they only become powerful when used with one ingredient that cannot be faked: self-respect. Everything you do, every text you send, every silence you hold, every moment you lead or let go, must come from a place of honoring yourself first. Otherwise, it's just performance, and women, they feel that. They feel when you're acting, they feel when you're forcing. But they also feel when you're real, when you're calm in your chaos, when you're strong enough to walk away from the wrong attention. When you can say, I want you, but I'll never need to beg for you. That's when she leans in, not just because you've used the right tricks, but because you've become the man her instincts have been wired to want. Not the loudest man, Not the richest man, not even the most handsome man, but the man whose emotional rhythm creates mystery, whose strength feels sacred, whose life feels bigger than her validation. She doesn't want to be your world. She wants to be invited into it, and if you've been the man who gives too much, too fast, too soon, breathe. You're not broken. You were probably raised to believe that love is earned through effort, not energy. But real desire doesn't respond to effort. It responds to essence. So ask yourself, what part of me have I been hiding to be accepted? Where have I been shrinking so she'd feel more comfortable? How often do I wait to be chosen before I choose myself? This journey you're on, it isn't about women, it's about you. It's about becoming the kind of man who lives fully, loves wisely, and leaves traces, not chains. Because once you learn how to stimulate desire with presence, once you learn how to be both felt and missed, once you learn how to say less, but mean more, she won't just fall for you. She'll find herself in you, and that is the rarest magic of all. Let's sit in this together for a moment, just you and me. No noise, no games, no trying to impress, just two truths meeting in the middle of your screen. You are not here because you want to manipulate a woman. You are here because you've been confused, maybe exhausted, maybe even hurt by how much effort you've given, only to watch something slowly slip away before your eyes. Not because you were unworthy, but because you were using a language she could not feel. What we call dark psychology is often just the hidden map of feminine attraction. Not wickedness, not deception, simply the shadows that most men never get the chance to learn how to navigate. And the deeper truth, most women don't even consciously understand why they're drawn to certain men. They just feel it. She meets a man and her heart races before he even says a word. Another man, who might be kinder, more available, even more successful, does everything right, but she can't bring herself to feel that. That magnetic pull, that aching awareness, and here's why: the feminine isn't looking for good. It's looking for charge. It's looking for a man whose energy doesn't beg but beckons, whose silence feels like a song, whose words feel like choices, not attempts. But most men today have been trained out of that power, taught to apologize before they speak, to soften their edges before stepping into the room, to trade their fire for politeness. And here's where it gets tragic. A woman can't fall in love with a man who hides his edges. She can appreciate him, be grateful for him, even care for him, but love, that fierce body, awakening, spine-tingling kind of love, that requires a current, a voltage, a man who knows how to hold tension without fear. So you must unlearn this myth that being liked is enough. Women don't crave likable, they crave unignorable, and what makes a man unignorable isn't his looks, or his money, or his smooth lines. It's the way he walks into a space and doesn't need to dominate it, because he already belongs to himself. It's the way he listens not to respond, but to study. It's the way he waits not passively, but with the quiet energy of someone who is whole. And when he touches her, when he speaks, when he chooses to reveal something, it feels intentional, not reactive, not habitual, but deliberate. That's what creates fire in her body, because it's rare, because it's real. Because her world is full of men who give her what she wants on the surface, but starve her of what she craves at her core. So let me be clear, you don't need to be mysterious to manipulate her. You need to be mysterious because you've finally stopped explaining your worth. You don't need to disappear because you want to play games. You need to disappear sometimes because you have a life that doesn't orbit around her. You don't lead with power because you want to control her. You lead because you are a man who honors clarity over confusion. And this is why these so-called tricks work. Because they're not tricks at all. They're ancient. They are human. They are instinctual. A woman is not falling for your performance. She's falling for your permission to be soft, to be seen, to be safe inside the flame of a man who doesn't flicker when winds rise. So how do you become this man? You begin by doing less and being more. You stop trying to impress her. You start learning how to impress yourself. You wake up in the morning and ask, where am I going that doesn't depend on her approval? You go to the gym not because she'll notice, but because it clears your mind. You speak truth not because she'll agree, but because lying would make you betray yourself. You tell her no when it's needed. You tell her wait when you're not ready. You tell her go if she's only staying out of fear. Because here's the paradox, the more powerfully you hold your own life, the more deeply she wants to be a part of it. Not because you're pulling her, but because she feels pulled by something in you she can't name but deeply trusts. That's the magic of polarity, and polarity isn't created by being cruel or distant or mean. It's created by the contrast between two people who are fully themselves. You, the grounded, self-possessed flame, her the open, curious wind that dances around it. This is not about becoming a puppet master. It's about becoming an anchor, because the more you chase her, the less stable you seem. But the more you live your truth with presence, power, and peace, the more she sees you as the place her heart can rest. So next time you feel the urge to text her out of fear, pause. Feel your feet on the floor, your breath in your chest. Your worth unshaken, and instead of reaching for her approval, ask yourself, what would the man she can't forget do right now? Then do that, not for her, but because that man is already in you. You've just forgotten his voice beneath the noise. Let's go even deeper now, not into her, but into you. Because everything you've learned so far isn't just about attraction. It's about awakening. It's about remembering what it feels like to be the kind of man who doesn't just make a woman feel something, he makes himself feel everything he was taught to numb. You see, most men have been taught to cut off their emotional depth. Don't be too soft, don't be too loud. Don't be too still, don't be too wild, and somewhere along the way they start moving through relationships like ghosts, present but not alive. You nod, you listen, you do everything right, but you don't move her soul because you haven't dared to move your own. So now it's time to reverse that. Because the ultimate psychological seduction, the deepest, most irresistible power you can offer a woman, is not the tension, not the asymmetry, not the mystery, it's your emotional presence. Undiluted, unfiltered, unafraid, it's the moment she looks at you and feels, without needing a word, that you are not hiding. Not your desire, not your fear, not your longing, not your truth. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you looked at a woman, not with strategy, but with witness? Not trying to figure out what she wants to hear, but letting her feel that you see her in the raw, unspectacular way that only a man grounded in his own wholeness can. That's not something you learn from a book. That's not something you pick up from a YouTube tutorial. That comes from facing yourself, holding your own shadows, owning the parts of you that have chased, begged, and felt invisible, and choosing today not to let those parts run the show anymore. Because that little boy inside, the one who fears not being chosen, he's been driving your relationships. Not because he's weak, but because he's wounded, and women feel it. They feel the man who leads with need. The man who praises too quickly, who offers too much too soon. Who tries to impress her with his resume of emotional availability, but what they crave, what shakes them to their core, is the man who is already full, who meets her not from emptiness but from choice, and when that man begins to speak, everything changes. His silence has weight, his glance has gravity, his no has boundaries, his yes has warmth, and she can tell, without needing to decode him, that he's not performing love. He's living it, so I need you to hear this now clearly and with conviction. You do not need to become someone else to be loved. You need to return to the man you were before the world told you how to shrink, the man who speaks slowly, who feels fully, who doesn't chase affection because he's not starving, the man who walks away when he's not being met, not as punishment, but as protection. The man who sees beauty, but doesn't crumble for it, that man is not rare because he's mythical. He's rare because most men are too scared to slow down long enough to find him. And if you're listening right now, you are not most men. You're remembering what it feels like to hold your own eye contact, to say what you mean without trembling, to offer your presence without explanation. You're remembering that you don't have to earn intimacy with effort, that the deepest desire a woman can feel is for a man who is fully, unapologetically, himself. And when you show up like that, real, grounded, steady, the game changes. The rules shift, because you're no longer trying to get her. You're choosing to be felt, and that feeling is impossible to forget. Let her chase what she can't quite explain. Let her miss the space you didn't try to fill. Let her feel the energy of a man who is not easily moved, but once moved becomes unforgettable. Because in a world of men trying to be liked, trying to be validated, trying to be chosen, you will stand out not because you're louder, but because you don't need to be. You will be the one she thinks about when the room is full, the one whose silence plays louder than another man's flattery, the one whose presence feels like peace in a world of noise. And no, not every woman will understand this energy. Some will find it unsettling. Some will call you distant, even arrogant, because they're used to men who explain themselves constantly, who plead and prove and chase and apologize for being whole. But the woman who's ready, she will see you. She'll hear something in the way you don't chase her. She'll feel something in the way you look at her, not to claim her, but to witness her. And her heart it will know, not because you tried to unlock her, but because you stopped locking yourself. So now we arrive at the final threshold, not of understanding her, but of choosing you. Because everything we've explored, every silent pull, every psychological cue, every emotional trigger, is meaningless if it's used to impress a woman while you continue to ignore yourself. You see, attraction isn't a tactic. It's a reflection of energy, of presence, of wholeness. The question was never, how do I make her love me? The real question has always been, am I willing to become the kind of man I could love myself? Because that is the secret no one tells you. Women don't fall in love with a performance, they fall in love with a frequency, the frequency of a man who knows where he stands, who knows what he wants, who doesn't demand love but attracts it with quiet certainty, and that doesn't mean he's perfect, or polished, or always says the right thing, but he's present, honest, unafraid to be seen not just in his power, but in his process. And she can feel that, so let's step out of the shadows now, not to escape the dark psychology we've talked about, but to integrate it, to use it not as manipulation, but as intelligence. You now understand how desire works in the feminine. You understand the tension that pulls her toward you not because you confuse her, but because you stop trying to be obvious. You understand that mystery isn't about secrets, it's about being emotionally alive in a way that makes her curious. You understand that leadership isn't domination, it's direction. It's the safety she feels when you take emotional responsibility, when you know how to hold her, not just physically but psychologically. You understand that absence isn't abandonment. It's the breath between notes in the song of your connection. You understand that unpredictability isn't chaos, it's creativity, it's the art of staying awake in love. And most importantly, you understand that your emotional energy is the most seductive thing about you. But now what do you do with that understanding? You practice, you embody, you commit. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop texting when you feel uncertain. You stop waiting for her to choose you before you live. You walk differently. You speak with more pause. You feel your own presence before offering it to hers. You don't manipulate. You magnetize, and when a woman comes into your life, whether for a night, a season, or a lifetime, you meet her with reverence, not desperation. You let her experience you instead of trying to convince her of you. Because you are no longer trying to be a man worth loving. You already are. Now this journey doesn't end here. In fact, this is just the doorway. The real work, the honest work, starts in how you begin showing up daily, how you hold eye contact with a calm heart, how you respond to her silence with steadiness, how you walk away when you're no longer respected without drama or collapse, how you return to yourself after every connection, deeper and more grounded than before. This is what makes a man unforgettable. Not his height, not his car, not the way he says the perfect line, but the way he holds himself when no one's watching, the way he stays rooted when emotions swell, the way he loves slowly, powerfully, without losing himself. That kind of man isn't found, he is forged, and you are already on that path. Now, before you go, I want to invite you to do something courageous. Share your thoughts in the comments. Not to prove anything, but because sometimes the most powerful step a man can take is to speak honestly. Tell me where you are in this journey. Tell me what landed for you, what shook you, what woke something up inside you. Because this isn't just a video, this is a mirror, and if you saw even a glimpse of the man you are capable of becoming, then it's time. Time to stop waiting. Time to stop chasing. Time to remember who you were before the world asked you to be smaller. If this resonated with you, if it stirred something in your chest or helped you see yourself differently, hit that like button. Subscribe not for me, but because you are no longer a man living in confusion. You are becoming a man of intention. And from this day forward, every time a woman looks into your eyes, she'll feel it. She'll feel your energy before you speak. She'll feel your silence before you reach. She'll feel your depth, not because you tried to show it, but because you finally stopped hiding it. Here's to the men who don't chase women, because they're too busy becoming the man she'll never want to walk away from. This is your time, walk in it.